Hallelujah, hallelujah. Good morning, good evening, good night. Welcome back. Welcome back to Voice in the Wilderness. I took out the A. I don't want the A, Voice in the Wilderness. Voice in the Wilderness. This is us, channel, ministry of the handwriting of Yehovah. My name is Maxie. I am your teacher for today. We are in this study, this prolonged, this in-depth study about, are you in or are you out? So question, and you could only be one place. You could only be in, or you could out. You can't be both in and out. In and out of the kingdom. Are you in the kingdom? Are you out of the kingdom? Are you sure you know where you are? Where are you? All these questions could be derived from, are you in or are you out? We are in this prolonged, exhaustive study. And I hope to culminate the story. I hope to bring this not story, but this study to a boil, if it hasn't been boiling already, and to simmer. Finally, turn the stove down a bit. Okay, put it on warm. Because, as I've said before many times, you can't stop. It's not like you bring it to an end. You know what I'm saying? All you could do is slow it down, maybe change course a little bit. And we're talking about the word, right? You can't, the word is unstoppable. You can't stop it. You can't break it. You can't destroy it. It's ever living, ever faithful, ever sure. It is to live for. And it is also to die for, if you get my drift. So, welcome back. I hope you have been enjoying this channel and the many teachings that we put out. We are going to go back into Romans 7. That's where I think we ended last week. We want to go back into Romans 7. Man, I just read one little piece of this yesterday, and I had to flip my tablet, which contains my Bible app. I had to flip it over and just like, golly, it was so much, right? But we have to understand certain principles, right? We have to understand that the truth and only the truth will set us free. And it doesn't matter how hard the truth is. If we are willing to accept it as truth, it will fare better for us. Right? We have done this word study on the man. And God said, let us make man in our image and in our likeness. And in that word study, we have read, we have found that as well as the written narrative in Genesis declares that we were made in the image of God and in the image and in his likeness, thus it may not mean what we think it may mean. It may not mean that we are gods. God never told us that we are gods. And we talked about that Genesis 4 narrative where it says, and now the man has become like one of us. And we recognize that God is not saying the man is God. The God is being very sarcastic to the man, because that's what the enemy, that's what the other side, that's what the serpent in the garden told the woman. Well, God knows if you eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you will be like him. And that's why he don't want you to eat it. That's the thought that was planted in the man's head by the adversary. We'll call him the adversary. The other side. The opposite, if you will. So when God told the man in Genesis 4, behold, the man has become, when he said that, he's not telling the man, oh, you're a God now. No. He's being sarcastic. He's laying some innuendo. Oh, so you think you're a God now. You think you're like one of us. And we broke that down at length because if we were God, we would be, listen, things would not be the way it is today. If we were in charge, see, we think we're in charge. Many people out there, we talk about that, leaders, governors, presidents, kings, rulers in different places, in different levels, superstars, stars. They think, scientists think they're in charge of stuff. They think they know stuff. But I know that there's one who knows everything. He knows all things. And then he kicked the man out of the garden. Well, if you was a God, how come you get kicked out the garden? If you are a boss, how come you get kicked out? You can't? No, if you're in charge, you're in charge. Genesis 1, 27, 28, let them have dominion. But remember, we talked about the fact that that dominion is a dominion given. It's an allotment, if you will. But if you received an allotment as a king or a president or a prime minister or a leader, if you received that allotment, you received it. It was given to you. You didn't earn, you didn't necessarily, you don't own it. It's he who has all authority, all power. He is the one who owns it. And he could give it to whomever he chooses, whomever he pleases. So, the ownership is not ours. The ownership is God's, is Yehovah's. We have to understand that. And so, in today's hopefully closing session of this, or I say hopefully because you never know, of this topic, are you in or are you out? We want to talk a little bit about the anatomy of disobedience. The anatomy of disobedience. And to understand that, we must accept the truth that as we broke down the word study about this man that God said, let us make man. That man, the being, the human being that whom God created, wasn't perfect from perfection's perspective. It was perfect from God's perspective. Now, you might say, well, God is perfection. Yes, I agree. But I'm talking about perfection from the human perspective. You know how we say something is perfect? We mean there's no flaws, no faults, nothing. God did not create a human being who had no flaws, no faults, or nothing. He did not do that. He did not create that kind of a human being. But within the human being, within his creation, because of the words, there is potential. Just like you have potential to be great, you have potential to be evil or to be wicked. The potential is in every single human being to be either good or evil. And that potential is not your fault that it's there. It's not a fault per se, but it's a reality. It's a truth that we have to accept. And the adversary, who is opposite, that's what the opposite brings out. The opposite brings out what the opposite is looking for in you. You remember Yeshua said, the prince of this world comes and who will find nothing in me. Why is Yeshua making a statement like that? The prince of this world comes. He's going to try to find something in me that he can latch on to. But guess what? There's nothing in me that he can latch on to. Because Yeshua understood the perfectness of obedience. He understood what obedience would do for him. He was one with the Father. He was perfect in his ways. He was obedient in everything. He said everything the dad said. He did everything. Listen. So, he understood it. Why is Yeshua called the second Adam? Because the first Adam was supposed to be like that. But he failed. He failed because the adversary that confronted her, she didn't confront him, the adversary came to her and asked, did God say? And it was merely a challenge to the potential in you and me to go against instruction, to go against Torah, to go against law, to go against obedience. So remember, sin is disobedience. Obedience is righteousness. Yes. So, we have to understand that. We have to accept that as truth. Okay? If it wasn't so, there's no way that the woman would have failed in that mission. If it wasn't so, there is no way that Yeshua could have been the lamb that was slain. Listen to when he was slain. Before the foundations of the world. Before the foundations of the world was not there. The sun wasn't there. The moon, the stars, the oceans, the mountains, the land, the animals, the plants, the trees, the shrubs, including me and you, as represented by the man and the woman in the garden. They weren't there. But John tells us in Revelation that Yeshua, he was the lamb that was slain before humanity came to be. So if he was slain before humanity came to be, that means God already knew exactly what he was getting ready to create. Oh, Lord, listen. Whew. This is good. This is good. So, we have to accept that as truth. That is the truth. You can't change it. I can't change it. It was so because that's how he planned it. The potential to fall, the potential for sin, the potential for disobedience was in the man and the woman from the get-go. You don't have to take my word for it. Go look at the word Adam, the Hebrew word, and see bronze and drivers and bricks. See if you will see anything that could create that mentality. Mean-facedness, hypocrite, all these things is in there, is in that word. Which lends to the idea that the man had this potential to be hypocritical, or to be a hypocrite, to be mean-faced, to blush, because red in the face, you could be red in the face not just because of anger, but when people blush, they get red in the face. You know, when a little girl pass and holler at you, and you, whoo, or vice versa, the girl, you pass and, you know, talk to some girl and she gets all excited, right? There's a potential to blush. I'm looking outside because I'm in Georgia, and boy, it's beautiful outside. A little bit of snow is falling, you know, not a lot, just a little sprinkling. And so the ground is white and green and dark and brown, and it's awesome. It's beautiful. And on my way over here, I was looking at the past park on one side. It wasn't like perfectly white, but you know, you could see the little green and brown in between the little dusts of snow. Awesome, beautiful. Anyway, coming back to, that was just a little side note. So why I wanted to start there was because I need to deal with this anatomy of disobedience. Because that's what Paul is unearthing here. That's what Paul is talking about here in Romans chapter 6. Right? And sorry, Romans chapter 7. And please have your Bible. Please go get your Bible. I'll give you 10 seconds. Because you're supposed to know where your Bible at. Go get it. Reach over there and pull it. We understand. We're going to start in Romans 7 and 7. So what shall we say then? Is the law disobedience? Or is the law disobedient? May it never be, he said. May it never be. However, I would not have known disobedience except through the law, except through the instructions, right? And I'm not afraid of the word law. I'm not afraid. Okay? We have to get to that point when we hear things, oh God, it means you're legalistic. See, that is your flesh telling you the truth. Okay? Is the law disobedient or disobedience? May it never be. However, I would not have known disobedience except through the Torah, except through the instruction. Well, let me finish this verse. For I wouldn't have known coveting unless the law had said, you shall not covet. Right? And you remember we talked about 1990 back in Trinidad, Abu Bakr take over the government, go on national TV and say, do not loot. And as soon as he said, do not loot, all hell broke loose. People went buck wild. Because the potential to go against the law, the potential to be disobedient is in there. And if you don't have self-control, if you cannot control yourself, then you will lend yourself to disobedience. Self-control is a fruit of the Spirit. Paul says, for the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, humility, perseverance, and self-control. Why is self-control a fruit of the Spirit? The life of the Spirit. Why does the life of the Spirit need self-control if in the Spirit there is no law? There is no need for a law in the Spirit. See what I'm saying? Doesn't make sense. Please follow what I'm saying. So the woman in the garden would not have known what the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil looked like if the potential to make her look at it that way wasn't there. God told the man and the woman, do not eat from the fruit of the knowledge of from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Don't, because from the day you eat of it, you will surely die. The opposite side said, did God, wait a minute, did God really say that? And then, even if he said it, God ain't telling you the truth, because God knows that the day you eat, you will be like him. You see? Tapping in to the potential in you to cause you to do something. Well, if you don't have a gun in your pocket, if you don't have a gun in your car, if you don't have access to a gun, somebody can't provoke you to pull a trigger. See what I'm saying? And I just use gun because it could take a life. Or a knife. A knife could take a life too. Or a car, if you will. But if you don't have the potential to do something, then somebody challenging you or pushing you or egging you on, right, to do it, it's just going to be a waste of time. But the opposite knew that the potential was in there. That's what he drove at. Did God really say? You understand what I'm saying? It's in you. It's inside. So you wouldn't know about coveting if you didn't first hear, do not covet. The reason why you hear do not covet is because you're supposed to know you mustn't covet. That's something you're supposed to know. That's a knowledge that you're supposed to have. But with the knowledge of having having that knowledge, you're also supposed to have, if you're in the spirit, walk in self-control, where you could say to the beautiful girl next door who's not your own, like Joseph with Pharaoh or Potiphar's wife, like in many instances, people who have turned their back on doing something wrong. Perhaps you, perhaps even me. It's the same principle. So, we think that the fruit of the Spirit is something that is just conjured up. Paul just created these things right there and then. It wasn't there before. It was always there. It's always there. It was there from the beginning. Right? She just didn't operate in it. So we're talking about the anatomy of disobedience. Well, disobedience is part of the word obedience. So if you don't have obedience, you would not have disobedience. But because you have obedience, you now have the possibility to be disobedient. See what I'm saying? It's part of the same word. Right? That's why I say when God created man, because hypocrisy, because meanness, because anger, and all these things were already wrapped up within that creative construct, it's already in you. You would listen, that's the truth. It's already there. And what was put in place to help govern you and me and everybody else was God's principles and his Torah. That's why the Torah is there to help us, to lead us, to guide us. It's a lamp unto my feet and a light to my pathway. You see what I'm saying? It's not there to destroy you. It's there to, going too far left. Hey. Like the boundaries on a soccer field. Like the boundaries on a football field. like the boundaries on a cricket field, like the boundaries on any in a basketball court, like the boundary on a volleyball court is like a net. It's like, and you see, we apply all of these things throughout our lives. It's like lanes in the street. It's like lanes on the road, on the highway. It's like that's why you build a bridge. Because you don't want to go through the traffic coming 90 miles per hour. You want to flow from east to west without having to stop at the north-south intersection. Just keep going over. That's why you have traffic signals. That's why you have police officers. That's why you have a judicial system. That's why you have Congress. That's why you have leaders who are supposed to be integrous and upright themselves to lead us the right way. And we talked about that at length in one of the teachings, right? Don't want to go back into that. We're talking about the anatomy of disobedience. It starts inside, not Adam and Eve, because they're long gone. It starts inside you and me. It's in there. Then Paul goes on to explain. Let me read this note that I made. Where are decisions made? People say decisions are made on the golf course. Decisions are made in the boardrooms. Decisions are made, in meeting places. No. Decisions are made in the heart. You may go to the golf course looking for ideas, but when you get the ideas, the decision is made in the heart. So if that's where a decision is made, where does obedience or disobedience begin? And what is God looking at from the get-go? He's looking at your heart. He's looking to see if you will channel your heart towards disobedience or not. Jeremiah says that the heart is desperately wicked and deceitful above all. Who can know it? So if you can know your own heart and I can know my own heart, I need the wisdom of God, which is the Torah, which is the instructions, to help me guide my heart in the right direction. I'm just saying, people. When our hearts are set towards Yehovah, doesn't mean that we can't make a mistake. It means that we will constantly be using this guide system that Yehovah put in place when it comes to matters of our heart. Everything is a matter of the heart. Not just love, peace, joy, faith, perseverance, self-control, hope, justice, mercy, kindness, tenderness. All these things, they're not tangible things. They are matters of the heart. Compassion. Paul says, don't stop up your hearts of compassion. Don't stop your bowels of compassion. I think is what he's literally said. Bowels of compassion. Well, if you think about it, your bowels, I'm 5'11", 5'10 and a half. And your bowels is about 21 feet. Average bowels in a regular human's body is about 21 feet. 21 feet in a 5'11" person, 5'10 and a half inch person. 21 feet of bowels. You know what your bowels are. Come on, man. Don't let me get into it. Okay? You don't want to get into your bowels. Ooh, yucky stuff in there. But my point is, look at the comparison. Don't stop the bowels of compassion. So if you're 6'5", your bowels of compassion is 21 feet or more, or maybe less. That means you have more compassion in you than you even think you have. Okay? When your heart is geared towards God, when your heart is geared towards Yehovah, you glean towards instruction. You lay hold of instruction. Right? David said, your word, your instructions, oh God, I've hidden in my heart, that I will not what? Be disobedient to you. Come on, people. We're talking Bible here. This is not legalistic. This is Bible. This is love. This is compassion. This is bowels of mercy. If it had not been for God who was on my side, I don't know where I would be. Is what Jeremiah said. I want to say the same thing. Because his mercy endures forever. And his compassions fail not. So, what are we really fighting, people? Why are we stuck on this legalistic, you're trying to take me back to the Lord? No, that's your flesh. That's your flesh. Don't mean to be rough or don't mean to be harsh. That's your flesh. That's that thing in you that wants to go against the grain. That's that disobedience in you that has been stirred up from years and decades and generations of false teachings, of lies and deceit. Are you in or are you out? If your heart is geared towards obedience, the instructions is going to be nothing. You have kids who listen to their parents, man, and man, they get blessed. And you have kids, don't listen to their parents. Man, and end up in... And every situation is different. I'm not saying it's all this way, it's all that way. But God is looking at every situation. He's in charge and in control of everything. And he knows why everything is the way it is. You don't know. I don't know. I could make some suggestions. But I don't exactly know why. Because he knows all things. I don't know everything. I only know in part. And so I teach in part. I prophesy in part. If your heart is geared towards obedience, if your heart is geared towards instruction, it's going to be no problem. Look at how Yeshua lived. He was locked in, people. Come on. Get it in your head. Get it in your heart. Yeshua was locked into the Father. He was tied, tangled up, and he was all wrapped up, tied up, and tangled up in the Father. And he still had to learn obedience by the things which he suffered. So, if he was so wrapped up, tied up, and tangled up, and still had to learn obedience, you think you're better than him? You think I'm thinking I'm better than him? Really? Come on, people. Come on, people. Let's get it together. Let's get it together, people. Verse 8. We're still in Romans. He said, but sin, finding occasion through the commandment, but disobedience found an occasion through the commandment to be obedient. That's exactly what Paul is this is what he's explaining. The disobedience is looking for a way to be disobedient. So if you are obedient, you would look for a way to be obedient and not agree with disobedient. He said, verse 8, Romans 7 and 8 says, but disobedience is finding an occasion through the commandment, produced in me all kinds of coveting. Well, how disobedience could produce something in me if it wasn't in me in the first place? The devil didn't make you do it. It was in you all along. It's you who is your own devil. Because you kick against God's instructions. You agree with the false teachers and the liars who said we don't have to follow God's instructions. We just have to know Jesus. Just say Jesus. Ooh, the sweetest name I know. And listen, he is all that. That is the sweetest name, okay? That don't mean you don't have to follow his instructions. Jesus himself said, if you love me, keep my commandments. And my commandments are not grievous. They're only grievous to people whose heart is seared towards grievance, who object towards instructions. That's the people it's going to be grievous to, those people. And then those people try to call the obedient people all kinds of names. Say they're legalistic and they this and that. Let's not go into that. Disobedience found a way through the obedience, because again I said it's part of the same word. It attached itself to the front of the word obedience and produced in me all kinds of coveting. Not just coveting, but all kinds of other things too. Murders and sexual immorality and all kinds of stuff that Paul keeps talking about that we have to what? Set aside. Listen to the closing statement in verse 8. Now I'll read it over again. The whole verse. But disobedience found a way through the commandment, through obedience, and produced in me all kinds of disobedience, right? Because apart from the commandments or apart from the instructions, disobedience is dead. Without the instructions, there is no disobedience. If God didn't say, do not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, then if I eat from the knowledge of good and evil, I am not being disobedient because God never said it. But we have to understand that instructions and principles and statutes and laws govern every aspect of life. Your eyes, your nails, your skin, your feet, your surroundings, the table. The table cannot be supported, cannot stand, if you will, without legs. The chairs would not be a chair without legs. It will be a chair low down on the ground, if you will. Right? The cars can't be a car without wheels to turning and going. And the car can't stop if the wheels don't have brakes. And all of these things, every single aspect. Listen, just think. Just think about it. Just think about it. Nothing in life exists in some free spirit. You know, people say, I'm a free spirit. No, you're not. You're not a free spirit. No. You either faithful to God or you unfaithful to him. You're not a free spirit. That's not biblically true. Oh gosh. Okay. But the truth is, God said, do not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So by God saying it, guess what? He created the potential to be disobedient. You see what I'm saying? It's there from the beginning. It's there from the beginning. Before you came. Listen. We continue in Romans 7 and 9. I was alive apart from the law once. See, when we read words in English like that, we think Paul was saying he was alive separated from the law. But you cannot be separated from the law, right? Because he said the law has dominion over a person for as long as he lives. So you have to get these concepts and these ideas correct. You can't be alive and exist separate from instructions and laws and statutes and principles. That cannot be. Because he said that can only happen if you're dead. Okay? So when he's saying he was alive apart from the law once, he was talking about living in a disobedient lifestyle. That is what being apart from the law is. Being apart from the law means I wasn't looking at the law, I wasn't being obedient to the law, I was being disobedient. I was being sinful. That's what he's saying here. But when the commandment came, okay, instead of me accepting the command and saying, okay, the commandment said don't do this, I'm not going to do it. Instead, what happened? Sin revived. Sin revived. Why did sin revive? He just explained it. Because as long as there are instructions, as long as there are principles and rules and commandments which exist, as long as you live, as long as you have these instructions, the potential to be disobedient is always present. It's not going to disappear. Sin doesn't disappear when God says, do not covet or do not murder. It doesn't take away the sin. Right? But if without self-control, without that little fruit of the Spirit, and without the wisdom of God getting you to understand that the instructions are put in place to guide you, to push you towards Him. Just like Moses said, I lay before you today, Deuteronomy 11 and 26, a blessing and a curse. But Moses is only laying down one thing. And the one thing is the instructions. And the blessing or the curse comes with your operation with that instruction. Do you obey the instruction or do you disobey? Because when you obey, you get the blessings. When you disobey, you get the curse. Listen. He comes back in verse 10 and says, the commandment which was for life. See? The commandment which was for life, This I found to be for death. Again, he's talking about being disobedient to the commandment, because disobedience is looking for a way, is finding a way, is constantly, perpetually coming at you as long as you live to cause you to exist in disobedience. Because whether you exist in obedience or disobedience, you obeying something. You either obeying your lusts, the lust of your flesh, which is disobedience, according to the instructions of God. It's disobedience to God's instructions. Or you obeying God's instructions, which will make you disobedient to the instructions of the flesh. See what I'm saying? So whichever side you stand on, you are disobedient. It's just, what are you disobedient to? And what are you obedient to? So I prefer myself, and I'm urging and encouraging everybody listening under the sound of my voice to be obedient to God and be disobedient to our flesh, rather than being obedient to our flesh and being disobedient to God. You get it? Listen, light and dark exist, okay? When I came in the building, it wasn't dark because it's daylight. Okay? But if you look outside at daylight, you will see darkness. Darkness exists in the shade of a tree. And if the tree is thick with leaves and broad expanse, there's a lot of shade. But you could still go in the shade and be out of the bright sunlight, but get shade. So understand principles. Where was the light in Genesis 1? The darkness was over the surface of the deep. The light was underneath there. The darkness was trying to dominate the light. But we know that is not how. Darkness can't dominate light. Just in the simple principle. Light illuminates. Darkness hides. Covers. I'm just saying. When I walked in the room, there was no lights on. The room wasn't black, pitch black, because the blinds are there. There's a window there that brings the light from outside. Right? And because the light comes in from outside, the room isn't like pitch black, where I had to fiddle around. But when I flick the light on, the shadows of darkness that was in the room, it didn't disappear, because as soon as I take the light switch off, here it comes again. See, we listen, we have to understand these principles. So there is a need for, if you want to say darkness, and I use that term broadly, not darkness in terms of evil or wickedness, but when it's hot outside, I'm looking for shade. So I'm looking for a tree that's very leafy, that's big and broad, and there's branches spread across. So when I go up under that tree, I don't get burned from the sun. Because under the tree is shade. There's a little darkness over there. Even God understands that principle. When he came down on the mountain, the written narrative in the Bible says he came down in thick darkness. Not just shroudy darkness, not just a little bit of darkness, thick darkness. Why? Because he is a lot of light. Okay? And he don't want to destroy the people, so he had to hide himself in the thick darkness. When Solomon dedicated the temple, The written narrative explains that God came down in a cloud and filled the temple, and the priests couldn't stay in there. They couldn't stand to minister. They had to go outside. Listen, I'm trying to get every one of us, including myself, to understand. When Paul is explaining something, we would not understand it if we put up these fences, these barriers that prevent us from actually seeing what the man is saying. It's already difficult trying to explain that. It's going to be worse if in the explanation you still have up your four walls and your roof and you cover yourself. Let the light in. You hear that? Let the light in. Break down the walls. Let the light in. The commandment was for life, is what Paul says. So how you could say we don't have to do it? It's for life. We have to do it. We should be doing it. We should be geared towards doing it. We should be happy and joyful while we do it. I love the Sabbath. Listen, it's one of the greatest days ever. There's nothing like it, I'm telling you. There's nothing like it. That seventh day, and I'm talking about the seventh day, Saturday. Yes, I'm talking about Saturday, the seventh day. There's no day like it. It is awesomely beautiful. If you just get in the zone and just do it, you will see. Oh my goodness, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it, I'm telling you. Verse 10, right? We're still in Romans. Listen, we have a lot to cover. He said the commandment is for life. But something in me is finding death. That's the disobedience. That's the opposition. You gotta get rid of the opposition. Okay? You gotta understand the opposition is there to oppose your joy, to oppose your faith, to oppose your healing, to oppose your blessing, to oppose all the things God promised them who are obedient to him. He said, if you are willing and obedient, you will eat the good of the land. You think you're eating the good of the land? You're not. Even if you have a Bentley or a Benz or a Rolls Royce or $2 billion in your pocket, you are eating the good of the land. Even if you think what you did brought you those things. You don't understand. You miss the idea. You lose the essence of what he's saying. Because you're looking at the $1 million you have. You're looking at your fancy car and your big house. And you think that's the good of the land. He goes on. The commandment was given for life. But this I found to be death. Why? Because disobedience, the disobedience in me, right? The disobedience, the dis in me is finding occasion through the obedience, which is the commandment, to deceive me. It's trying to get me to obey it rather than to obey the commandment. This is what he's saying. For sin finding an occasion through the commandment deceive me. Deceives, continually deceives. Because I said, as long as you live, that's the idea. It will continually try to deceive you. And through that deception, you will die. If you keep being disobedient, you will die. That's why God is always talking about a remnant. Because people don't want to understand this principle. They're still holding fast to the lies that they've been told. And that's why we're going to end up just a remnant. 8 point something billion people in the world. And only a remnant of that will be at this place to understand. Come on, people. Think about it. Think about where you are, what you're thinking about. Listen, verse 12. Therefore, the law indeed is holy. Listen. The law is holy. The law is set apart. The law is sanctified. The instructions, you are set apart. You are sanctified. You and the law is like the same thing. So you have to operate in it, people. How the law can be sanctified and set aside and holy, you sanctified and set aside and holy, and you're doing the opposite. You're not doing what the law is, what the instructions are saying to do. You're doing everything else. Are you in or are you out? How you could be experiencing those two things at the same time? You cannot. Either one or the other. Listen, let's read verse 12. Romans chapter 7, verse 12. He said, therefore the law indeed is holy. The commandment is holy and righteous. Listen. The law indeed is holy. And the commandment is also holy, and it's righteous and good. But we were taught that we had to set it aside. So then the question is asked, did then that which was good become death to me? How is that possible? God gave us something good, not something detrimental. God is not trying to kill you. God is trying to guide you, to lead you in all truth and in all righteousness. So it's good. He also answers the question by saying, may it never be. Is the law, is the law disobedience? May it never be. Did then that which is good become death to me? May it never be. The target here is disobedience. And we have to understand the anatomy of disobedience begins in our heart. The anatomy of rebellion begins in our heart. Because if you disobey the instruction, you are being obedient to disobedience. If you obey, sorry, did I? Okay, let me, I'm not gonna, how you call that? Edit it. If you obey the commandment, the instructions, the Torah, you will be disobedient to disobedience. I think that's what I said. If you obey disobedience, you will be disobedient to God. I'll say it like this. Every single human being created has a rebellious streak. That's the disobedience. We have that rebellious thing in us, a rebellious. So if we obey God, we're rebelling against everything. If we obey everything, we're rebelling against God. Who you prefer to rebel against? Think about it. He said, may it never be. Then he goes on to say, but disobedience, that it might be shown to be disobedience, was producing death in me through that which was good. So he says, don't do something, and disobedience begin to say, you could do that, ain't no big deal. It's like driving the speed limit. Oh yeah, you could drive 5 miles over, it's no big deal. Well, there's no law saying that you could drive 5 miles over. I used to work with police officers, so don't try to tell me, maybe in your where you live. But where I live, there's no law, there's no instruction saying that you can drive. It is allowed, you are permitted to drive 5 miles over the speed limit. There is no instructions where I live saying that you could do that. But if you drive 5 miles over the speed limit, a police officer may not pull you over because it's just 5. It's just 1. It's just 2. But that's in his discretion. Again, grace is in the hands of the person who is holding the law. I need you to understand that. Grace is not in your hands. Grace is in the hand of the police officer. So if on that day you driving 5 miles over the speed limit, and let's just say the police officer is, in the cut in the corner, and he have his gun and he see you, the speed limit is 55, but the road is wet and it's dangerous. Maybe even now, like outside, it's snowy and a little itchy bits of snow on the road. And you're doing 55, the police officer thinking to himself, you know what? That's a little too fast. Let me pull you over. You may get a ticket, you may not get a ticket. But it still is in the discretion of the police officer. It's still in the discretion of God. It's still in the discretion of the person who is upholding the law. But if you have a heart towards God, a heart towards being obedient, and you decide, you know what? You see the conditions outside. You know it's 50 miles per hour. You decide through your process of operating in the Spirit, thinking things through, looking at things from God's perspective, you know what? I'm not even going to drive 55. I will go a little slower. I'm going to be cautious. I'm going to do 45, 47, 40. What does that make you? Legalistic? No, that makes you righteous. That makes you obedient. Not just obedient, but that makes you very cognizant, very wise, if you will, with the knowledge that you have. The knowledge that it's snowing outside, the knowledge that the speed limit is 50, the knowledge that there's a few cars on the road, the knowledge that the tires might pick up a little slip here and there. You know what? Taking all these things in consideration, I'm not going to do 50. I'm going to do 40, 42, 45. You see what I'm saying? That's wisdom. Because you don't have that mentality to be like, man, shoot, this guy driving so slow. Why are you driving so long? Pass him because I want to go fast. I want to get where I'm going quick. I want to go home. I'm hungry. I want to go to the game. I want to go to church. I want to go hear Bishop. I want to go to the grocery. I want to get back home. I want to move. I want to do it. You're not thinking about, you're not thinking about nothing else but that. And that just might put you closer to disobedience, right? Here's a little joke my ex-wife used to say, boy, you get me on my last nerve. Right? She used to say that quite a bit. So I used to say to her, I say, well, sweetie, you need to stop standing up on your second to last nerve. It was all in fun, right? Because if you're constantly standing up right next to the line, chances are it's just a little push, a little nudge, and you go over the line. No, but if you stay way inside the line, it's harder for you to get to the line. Take more effort. Chances are you might think things through a little bit. What James say? James say, be slow to speak and be quick to listen. It might give you that opportunity. But if you're standing up right next to the line thinking, well, you're so big and bad. I don't have to do the law. I could you by the line or you over the line, always operating like that. Guess what? It's easy for you to be pushed. Right? But as I said before, if you don't have a gun in your pocket, then the chances of you using that is null, is nil. Because you don't have it. Right? I think I heard somewhere they say there was never a weapon in history, right? In human history, there was never a weapon that was created that was never used, at least once. Right? So the reason why you create a weapon is hopefully you don't use it. But if you create a weapon, it's easier for somebody to play the fool, which nobody is perfect. So somebody will play the fool, chances are, and force you or cause you to think about using a weapon and maybe perhaps use the weapon. Like the atomic bomb, like all the weapons we have. If the weapon is not there, then there's no chance anybody could use it. But the mere fact that somebody created it, it lends to the idea that if somebody created, that means somebody going to use it. Somebody, whether it's you or me, whether it's a good leader or the bad leader, somebody can use it because it's available to be used. I'll leave that right there. So he says, the law indeed is holy, the commandment is holy. We're going back to Romans 7 and 12. Holy and righteous and good. Did that which is good become death to me? May it never be, but sin that it might be shown. Listen, anybody could tell who is disobedient and who is not. Anybody could look at somebody and say, oh, that person is not listening. Because they're doing something opposite to what they should be doing. They ain't following instructions. They ain't listening. Right? They're hard-hearted on all these things. Was producing death in me through that which is good, that the commandment sin might become exceedingly sinful. That through the commandment sin might become exceedingly sinful. So the commandment is there, thou shalt not murder. Well, you ain't just murder one time. You now use what they call them, a serial killer. That's what I'm saying. If you do it one time, guess what? It doesn't take away the instruction, thou shalt not kill. It doesn't do that. If you covet one time, covet. Oh boy, I tell you. If you covet one time, if you steal one time, the law is not going away. It's still there. Do not steal. It doesn't take away the commandment, but it just emphasizes the kind of person you are. I was telling a co-worker of mine Friday, what you do exposes who you are, not who your neighbor is, not who your brother or your sister is, or your father or your mother, but it exposes who you are, what you do. Right? Remember, Yeshua told the crowd in the Gospels, you are like your father, the devil. Well, what he did exposed who he was. And what they do is exposing what they are, and they are like who he was. So when you do something, you're not doing anybody anything. You're doing it to yourself. You are your own worst enemy. Not the devil, you. The devil is not your enemy. The devil is God's devil. He worked for God. He have to do everything listen, the devil more obedient than you. Isn't that a shame? Wow. That's a revelation right there. That's a revelation right there. The devil is more obedient than you and me. I wouldn't exclude myself, because guess what? I ain't perfect. That's revelation right there. According to Keith and Nehemiah, that's a torple. That's a torple. Because the devil has to do whatever the instructions he gets. He doesn't say, I ain't doing that. When God asked him about Job, he ain't be like, nah, if you move your fence, I ain't going to touch him. He didn't say no. God said, I'm going to move my fence, go mess with him. Devil didn't say, no, I ain't feeling to do that no more. I changed my mind. No, he didn't. He didn't. The devil, every time I say it, I'm telling you, that's some revelation right there. The devil is more obedient than me and you. Wow. That's scary. So, coming back to Romans chapter 7. Listen. Verse 14. For we know that the instruction, that the Torah is spiritual. Did you hear that? Paul is saying, for we know that the Torah is spiritual, but I am fleshly. Oh God, that's an indictment if I ever hear any indictments in my life. Paul said that the Torah is spiritual. But I am fleshly because I am just so hell-bound on being disobedient. And I am sold under sin. Well, I'm sold under sin because she broke the commandments. And I'm not saying she as in to blame her, right? And if you were following all along, you would know that she probably didn't understand that the potential to be in this position was in her. That's why she saw that, the tree, that is so good, that is so true. Yeah, I will be like God. I'll be like God. But listen, you were made in his image. You don't have to do anything else to be like him. You just have to be obedient. But remember, every king demands loyalty. Every king, and we read in the last few sessions that whomever you give your loyalties to, that's who you become a servant of. So if you're not loyal to King Yeshua, King Jesus, you're loyal to another king. Your loyal might be to your own self, to your own fleshly desires, your own fleshly lusts. But I want you to understand what Paul says. The law, the Torah is spirit. But then he said that we are above the Torah. So like Paul didn't know what he's saying. No, he know exactly what he's saying. We don't comprehend what he's saying. Because there is a place of operation that's above the law. And we talked about it. And it does not mean that you don't follow the law. But operating above the law is simply saying that the law, the barriers, doesn't keep you bottled in. The barriers give you more freedom to be more loving, more kind, because you're not looking at, well, I give them $5. Man, what do they do with that $5? Man, I tell you, I want them to do this and that and the other. But they take the $5 and see, when you operate in the spirit, you don't, all them thoughts that go into your head, they're not there. You see what I'm saying? Because when you love something or you love someone, that love, listen, if you go and read, should we go there? I'm thinking, should we go? Let's go. 1 Corinthians, you know where I'm going. 1 Corinthians 13. Let's read and see what love, how love operates. Okay? And in order to see how love operates, we have to see how it doesn't operate, right? See? Opposite. If I speak with 1 Corinthians 13 and 1, do I have to say it? If I speak with tongues of men and of angels and have not love, I am become a sounding brass and a clanging cymbal. All I'm doing is making noise. I'm just giving lip service. If I have the gift of prophecy, know all the mysteries and all the knowledge, who have the gift of prophecy and who knows all the mysteries and all knowledge? Who does that? Who is in that place? There's only one. That's the Father. That's God, right? And I have all faith. Who has all faith? That's the Father. So I can remove mountains. Who can move mountains? The Father. But I don't have love. I am nothing. The Father is something because he got love. If I give away all my goods to feed the poor, and if I give my body to be burnt, but I don't have love, it profits me nothing. Love is patient, fruit of the Spirit. Love is kind, fruit of the Spirit. Love does not envy. See? Love, when you love somebody, there's not a streak of envy in anything about that person when it comes to you. You don't envy that person for nothing. Can you say that about yourself? Can I say that about myself? I cannot. I'm sorry. I try hard to be. I work at it every day. But I'm not there yet. Paul wasn't there yet. The only person who got there, I'll say this, the only person who got there was Messiah Yeshua. He made it. And if we don't follow that example, we ain't gonna make it either. Okay? So, love doesn't brag. Love is not proud. Love does not behave itself inappropriately. I want you to think about these things. Love doesn't seek its own way. And what we do is we shine the bright lights in every other place except where we're supposed to shine it. I was having a conversation with a coworker friend of mine who was going to do something with her husband. And in doing that thing, she was telling us that if she's got an opportunity while she's doing that thing to be at a different place, not sitting beside her husband, she would take that opportunity because it was her birthday. And so it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us sitting, and all 4 of us says, you can't do that. You can't take that occasion to do that because it's your birthday. That's not wrong. That's your husband, Well, and what I'm saying is, because that person's made up in their mind that that's what they want to do, they try to make excuses for why it's a good idea. They try to shine the light in every other place except in the place where we're trying to say that's not the right thing to do. That's the wrong thing to do because that's your husband. Your husband, you ought to be with your husband. See what I'm saying? Love is not. It doesn't seek its own way. And I'm not condemning her. I'm not condemning anybody. Listen, I've been in those places. I've made wrong decisions. If it's anything, I'm just condemning me. But I'm just saying, love does not seek its own way. Not I, but the word, the letter, the words of Paul to the Corinthians is saying, love doesn't seek its own way. Love always seek after the way of another person. What's best for you? Love is not provoked. Love takes no account of evil. I want us to slow down and think about these things. This is how love operates. Love doesn't take account of any evil. Love doesn't say, well, you did that yesterday. I saw what you did last summer. I remember that movie. Put it in a note. I saw what you did last summer. Love doesn't operate like that. Love doesn't rejoice in unrighteousness. Love does not rejoice in disobedience. Love is not going to see somebody operating in disobedience and say, hey, that's the way to go. Woo! That's not love. But this is love. Love rejoices with the truth. When you hear the truth, love shouts, yes, that's the truth. That's when love rejoices. With the truth, not with disobedience. Love also bears all things. Man, I thought I was in love. I thought I loved. I didn't. Because I didn't bear all things. I couldn't bear all things. Love believes all things. Man, I thought I loved. I thought I know how to love. I thought I was the love man. I wasn't, because I didn't believe all things. Love hopes all things. Love always have hope. Hope of better, hope of growth, hope of goodness, hope. Where there is no hope, people perish. That's my translation. I think the narrative says vision, where there is no vision. Well, vision has to do with hope. Where you have vision, that has vision and hope is synonyms. Hopes all things. I thought I was the love man, but I was not, because I wasn't hopeful in everything. Love endures all things. Again, I didn't endure all the things that I thought I could endure. And so we try and we think we know what love is. I want to know what love is. I want you to show me. Are you looking? He's showing you what love is. Love endures all things. That means if you say you love, hope supposed to be there, strength, faith, endurance, self-control, all of that. And he goes on to say in verse 8, love never. Wow. Listen. Love never fails. Love never fails. Never. You think God is going to fail? The written narrative, John says, God is love. God, love. He is love. Not he's the God of love. Not like Cupid. He's the God of love. No. God is love. Yehovah is love. Love is the fabric of who he is. It's the skin that covers him. It's the flesh that's under the skin. It's the eyes in his head, the nose on his face, it's the mouth that speaks the words, it's his ears, it's his hands, his heart, his shoulders, his feet, his toes, it's his hair on his head. All of that is it's knitted and tied together with love, in love. He doesn't have muscles, he has love in his. He doesn't have eyes, he has love. He is love, if you get my drift. Everything he goes on to say, everything else will fail. Love never fails. So you think you love, yeah. Oh, Jesus, I got Jesus, you love. No, you don't. No, you don't, because you still hold. You have all kind of ought against all kinds of people. We have ought against all kinds of people. For all kinds of things. No. 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 But know this, every king demands loyalty. He demands obedience to his rules. Every king, whether is King Jesus or whether your king is the devil himself or whether your king is you. Whether you're your own king. Every king demands loyalty. He wants people who are loyal to his instructions, to his kingship. No king wants, would you tell me, which parent wants a disobedient child? Tell me, you tell me. Tell me, please, which one of you out there who are parents desires a disobedient child? No parent wants a disobedient child. Every parent wants an obedient child. Why do you think God is any less? Why do you think God is any less of a parent? If your heart is geared towards God, if your heart is geared towards Yehovah, we have to set aside these ideas in our minds, these ideologies, okay, that have been planted there from the garden. God is a good God. Paul just told us his commandments are good and righteous and holy. You know what we say? We don't have to do that. Wow. Wow. Are we serious? The indictment is to us, is to our hearts, where we make decisions. Okay? It's where we make decisions. That's where the indictment is. Jeremiah says, for the heart is desperately wicked and deceitful above all things. Trying to find where that is. Jeremiah. Come on, Jeremiah, where you are. 17 and 10. Let's go there. Follow me. Jeremiah 17. Let's read a few passages from Jeremiah 17. Start in verse 7. Blessed is the man who trusts in Yehovah and whose confidence is in Yehovah. For he will be like a tree planted by the waters, who spreads out its roots by the river and will not fear when the heat comes. Count it all joy, I think Peter said, or Paul, or one of the apostles, when we fall into divers temptations and situations. Count it all joy. You would only be able to count it all joy if you are a tree planted by rivers of water. Because when the heat comes, your feet is cool. You in the water. Water cools heat. Although heat could boil water. But guess what? We are so much connected to water. Our bodies are over 70% water, right? The world is more water surface area than earth surface area in the universe, okay? So that says a lot about water. We have enough water to cool on any kind of heat. I love it. That sounds like a psalm or a proverb, right? For he will be like a tree planted by the waters, who bringeth forth fruit in its season, I think is what the psalmist says. But its leaf, we in Jeremiah, we're not in the Psalms, we in Jeremiah 17 and 8. In the middle there, says, but its leaf will be green and will not be concerned in the year of drought. See, when you are a tree next to water, you don't worry about drought. Because you sucking up all that water and you storing up that water wherever your storage areas are as the tree. And even in the years of drought, you have enough water to keep your leaves green. David said, your word, O Lord, have I hid in my heart. I got so much of your word hidden in my heart that I would not sin against you. I store up your word in my heart. Your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my pathway. So whenever I'm living and I'm walking and I'm going, your word guides me and tells me, little left, little right, come on, little higher, little lower, stop, duck, run, walk, jump. Is the sweet. It won't cease from yielding fruit, even in drought. Because you store up all that water in you. And then he goes on to say the verse that we're getting at. The heart is deceitful above all things and is exceedingly corrupt. Who can know it? Well, we know who knows the heart. He who knows the heart looks at the heart. And he who knows the heart, because he created the heart, gave the heart instructions to keep the heart healthy and happy. But the heart decides, I want healthy and happy. I want disobedience and sinfulness. What does God desire? He wants you to understand. If you obey my word, you'll be blessed. The blessing comes with obedience. The blessing doesn't come with Jesus or with saying Jesus. The blessing doesn't come that way. The blessing comes with being obedient. You know why? Because Jesus was perfectly obedient. He was perfectly obedient and he reaped the biggest blessing. What's the biggest blessing? He was resurrected. Death, even death, couldn't keep him down. Tell me, people, please. Tell me. We have to get it. 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 Proverbs 21 and 1. Listen. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. It's like a watercourse in his hand, and he turns it wherever he desires. Listen. The heart that's desperately wicked and deceitful above all things, who can know it? God. Who does know it? God. God is saying, I have even the king's hand in my hand, and I could turn his heart any which way I choose. Ask Pharaoh. Ask Pharaoh. Pharaoh was trying to let the Hebrews go. He was trying to let them go, the children of Israel. And God kept saying, don't let them go. Come on. No, you the king. You God in the earth. No, you could, come on. And Pharaoh, every time he said, hey, okay, go, he changed his mind. Every time he said, okay, go, he changed his mind. Every time. Even until he died. God had his hand in his heart. God said, yeah, I'm going to show you who is in control. I'm going to show you who is in control. You think it's you? And we could go on through Proverbs 21. Every way, verse 2, every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but Yehovah weighs the heart. The heart. Who's your heart geared towards? Disobedience? Obedience. If you're being disobedient to obedience, you're being disobedient to God. If you're being obedient to God, you're being disobedient to disobedience. And that's what God wants. God wants you to put your foot on the neck of disobedience and say, this is where you done, bro. This way it ends for you, because I'm with him. You can't be with him and with him at the same time. It doesn't happen like that. Matthew 19. Let's just go through some reading, man. Just read some things. Let's read some things here. Some beautiful things here. When Yeshua had finished these words, we're talking about Jesus, Yeshua. He departed from Galilee and came into the borders of Judea beyond the Jordan. Great multitudes followed him, and he healed them there. And Pharisees came testing him and saying, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife? We've read this. I want to reread it because the indictment is on our hearts. It's not on God's word. It's on our hearts. He answered, verse 4, haven't you read that he who made them from the beginning? See, Yeshua goes beyond the instructions and says, no, you don't understand. Because you so focus on whether you should divorce her or whether you shouldn't divorce her, that you not paying attention to the instruction from the beginning. The two shall become one. And he goes on. Verse 7. They asked him, well, why then did Moses command us to give a certificate of divorce and divorce her? He said to them, Moses, because of the hardness of your heart. Indictment. Your heart is so hard, you don't want to hear the truth. Their hearts were so hard. This man came, he lived perfectly in the presence of God, in the sight of God, with God, and they still killed him because their hearts was hard. I am telling you the truth, but your heart's still hard. The hardness of your hearts, that's where the anatomy of disobedience starts. It starts in the heart. You already purpose in your mind, I ain't doing this because of what I was told. Not recognizing that what you was told was against the commandment in the first place. Let's go on. Verse 10. His disciples said to him, if this is the case of the man with his wife, it is not expedient to get married. If I can't divorce my wife, then I don't think I should get married. You see? He said to them in verse 9, I tell you, whoever divorces his wife except for sexual immorality and marries another commits adultery. And he who marries her when she is divorced commits adultery. But listen to where their mind is. His own disciples. Listen to where they're thinking, well, I wouldn't even think about divorcing my wife. I'm going to love my wife forever. They ain't thinking like that. Listen to where they're thinking. They ask him, well, boy, if that's the case, then I don't think it's a good idea to get married. You see? Man, I tell you, the indictment is against us and our hearts. Our hearts, people, we have got to get it right. And then he turned, verse 11. We're in Matthew 19, if you've just joined us. Matthew 19, verse 11, he says, but he said to them, not all men can receive this saying. See? Not everybody is going to be able to receive what I'm saying. Because remember, some people are set for destruction. I'll say it again. According to the narrative, not everybody's going to buy into the plan of God. Some people are deliberately, they don't care. They are not going to buy into the plan of God. Some people deliberately, insistently they turn their backs and they harden their heart. Their conscience is seared with a hot iron and there's no return for them. But to those whom it is given, he who have ears to hear, let him hear. So if something is pricking you and telling you, better listen. Hey, what did he say? If you hear that little knock on your door of your heart, don't shut it. Open it. Open it. Open it. Open it. And he goes into this spiel in verse 12, which I want to get into a little bit. Because remember, the indictment is against the heart of mankind. But he still goes back and says that even though I'm saying this, not many men are going to receive it. There are reasons for that. Okay? Because there is a reason why the man was supposed to be with the woman in the first place. Because the instruction is, he blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply. So for the man and the woman to be together, they have to be fruitful and multiply. Well, there are situations and circumstances that might make this difficult. One, he says, but to those whom it is given, because or for there are eunuchs who were born eunuchs, or who were born that way from their mother's womb. So there are men, and parenthetically, all right, John, parenthetically women, who were born with the issue of not being able to give birth or to procreate. So if you're a man and you cannot procreate, and you cannot be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth, you may not be in a position to understand, to receive, because that comes with the territory. He made them male and female so they can procreate. Two males cannot procreate. Two females together, I'm talking about two males together, cannot procreate. Two females together cannot procreate. They can perverse and cause destruction, but they cannot procreate. Procreation is good and upright and righteous, and the other things are destructive and perverse and wicked. Okay? But eunuchs are born that way. See, Yeshua addressed some of the issues that we're seeing today rearing their ugly heads. Right? That, I don't want to get into that. But you understand what I'm saying. If you look at what's going on in the world today, this is addressing those issues. For there are eunuchs who were born that way from their mother's womb. It's not that he is a woman. Listen, it's not that he is a female. He's just might be a eunuch. So you don't have to change nothing. Don't have to take no operation. Don't have to do none of that. You just have to be that he is. If he came from his mother's womb that way, guess who knew? Guess who knows? Guess who is in full command of that situation? God. Because guess what? He told Jeremiah, don't tell me, because I knew you before. I'll just leave that right there. Then he goes on to say, there are eunuchs who were made eunuchs by men. So somebody in authority saw it fit and right to do something to another person who they may have authority over by snipping them, right? And creating a eunuch. That person will have to answer for that. Okay? But the person who is now created, who is now a eunuch, if you live in a vengeful kind of lifestyle and a destructive kind of lifestyle, you have to answer for that too. Right? Whereas if you live the upright life, then is the man who snip you, he had the answer. You good. Then he says, there are eunuchs who made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. There are eunuchs who made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. Guess what? You know, that's one of the things you have to be a Catholic priest, I think. Take a vow of celibacy, right? Well, it's technically kind of making yourself a eunuch because you can't really use your members. You're not supposed to if you take a vow of celibacy, right? But that's dangerous territory. Because remember, you created male. And you created male and designed to be attracted to a female. Okay? And if you perverse that, if you take that and begin to do other things with it, I suggest, like Paul said, you might as well just get you a female. So the vow of celibacy thing is dangerous at a minimum. And it means that you are standing on the line, if you will. Remember that line I talked about before with my ex when she said, you get me on my last nerve. And I said, well, no, you need to get off your second to last nerve. Maybe go on the first nerve. And then it'll take you a little time to get up to your last nerve. But if you stand on your last nerve, vow of celibacy, then you can't be like Paul. You're in trouble. You're in trouble. And you create a wall of situations for your own self. I'm going to leave that right there. And then he says, he who is able to receive it, let him receive it. See? He who is able to hear that, understand it, have the correct perception, and begin to flow in that, let him do that. Telling you, we have to listen. This is instructions. This is instructions. When we begin to dibble and dabble and fiddle around, thinking that we don't have to follow instructions, that's when we create a mess for ourselves. Let's go down. We are taking a knife and we sticking it in the middle. We dissecting our hearts because the indictment is to our hearts. God has arrested our hearts, and He wants to explain to us the issue. The problem is with your heart, and if you don't get a hold of these instructions, if you don't understand that the instructions are there for your good, they're for your uprightness, for your righteousness, if you keep fighting against the pricks, you create more trouble for yourself. Verse 16. Behold, one came to him and said, Good Rabbi, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life? It's a good question. He wants eternal life. He is recognized Yeshua. He doesn't seem to have any malice in his heart. He asks a question. He addresses Yeshua as a good rabbi, good teacher. He says, Good Rabbi, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life? Yeshua answers him like this. Listen. He says to him, verse 17, we in Matthew 19 and 17, why you call me good? I thought him and your father was one. I thought him and the dad was one. Yeshua was one with the dad. He was the God in the earth. What happened? He said, why you call me good? He goes on to say, no one is good but one. That is God the Father. What? Listen. Listen. It's about your heart. It's about the anatomy of disobedience. Okay? Even Yeshua recognized, wait a second, if I accept that compliment, then that puts me in a precarious position. No, sir. Why do you call me good? No, there's no one good except one. And that's God the Father. But if you want to enter into life, guess what Yeshua said? Keep the instructions, keep the Torah, keep the commandments, keep the statutes, keep the law, keep the principles, do them. If you want to enter into life, do the commandments. They will lead you into life. Your word, oh God, is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my pathway. I hide your word in my heart that I will not be disobedient to you. If you do them, you will not be disobedient. Verse 18. This is the young master response. He said to him, which ones should I do? What do you mean, which ones? Yeshua said, you shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not offer false testimony. Honor your father and your mother, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Well, he only named like 4 or 5. That means I should only do the 4 or 5. That's not the idea. Okay? Again, the indictment is on your heart. There is an indictment on our hearts. And if we don't fight, if we don't work, if we don't do these, if we don't wrestle with this thing and deal with it once and for all, this is what's going to happen. He says, he's saying, do this, do that, those things. And immediately we think this is all he's talking about. None of the others. No, he's just giving examples. It's just like in this fruit of the Spirit, you're not seeing mercy and justice. You don't see compassion and righteous. You don't see all of that in the list of the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians. You don't see that in there. It doesn't mean that that's not there. Doesn't mean that that's not fruit of the Spirit. Doesn't mean that. Those are just examples. It's not a list. It's not just 9. We got to stop this idea of putting up these walls, making these lists. It's 9 ways to get wealthy and 6 ways to do this and 5 ways to do that. Listen, I get it. I get it. Verse 20. Listen to the response of the young man. He said, the young man said to him, okay, I see. I get the drift. All these things I have obeyed from my youth. I've been doing these things. I grew up in my household, my parents' household, hearing this. I've been following these instructions all my life. What do I lack? He asked. I've been obedient all my life. What do I lack is the question. See? What did Yeshua say? Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word. Every word. Every word is every word, right? So Yeshua said to him, verse 21, if you want to be perfect, he's telling him, okay, if you want to be perfect, go sell what you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Come and follow me. See? Simple. If you want to be perfect, you say you love Jesus and you're looking for life evermore, life everlasting, eternal. Here's the way. Do the commandments, obey them. In addition to that, I'm telling you now, sell all you have, give it to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Not just that, come and follow me. Oh, I said, it's an indictment to our hearts. Let's continue reading, as Keith Johnson liked to say. Keep reading. Verse 22. But when the young man heard this word, he went away sad, for he was one who had great possessions. If you don't know that God knows where you are, you have a problem. God knows exactly where you are. Yeshua knew exactly where he was in his heart. And he knew if he gave him that word that would penetrate his heart. See, I lay before you a blessing or a curse. It's a blessing if you obey. If you disobey, it becomes a curse. What happened? You want me to sell all I have and give it to the poor and come and follow you? Oh, it's an indictment to our hearts. Verse 23. Yeshua said to his disciples, listen, most certainly I say to you, a rich man will enter into the kingdom of heaven with difficulty. In another translation it says, you see how difficult it is for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven? His disciples, when they heard it, they were extremely astonished, saying, wow, who then can be saved? If it's hard for the rich to get into heaven, it's doubly hard for the poor to get into heaven. But you remember, getting into heaven has nothing to do with whether you're rich or whether you're poor. It has everything to do with what's in your heart. And looking at them in verse 26, Yeshua said, with men, this is impossible. But with God, all things are possible. How are we going to be with God if we don't want to follow His instructions? How are we going to be with His kingdom if we don't want to follow the instructions of the kingdom? You tell me. But the indictment, it's against our hearts. And remember, from day one in Genesis to day, how much ever it is, whatever day you're listening to this, whatever day it is, it's about who you are going to obey. It's not about what you say, it's about who are you going to obey. Are you going to obey man? Because man said we don't have to obey God. We don't have to follow His instructions. Yeshua died. He nailed the instructions to the cross. No, He didn't. Yeshua died for your disobedience. It is your disobedience that has brought you death. And He removed death so that you will focus on being obedient. But if your heart is if your heart is hard towards being obedient, then your heart is soft towards being disobedient. And if you're being disobedient, you're not going to obey His instructions. You're going to believe the lies. You're going to believe the untruths. You're going to follow in deception. And you will find yourself in debt. Not D-E-B-T, but D-E-A-T-H. Death will have a hold of you. But if you follow after Yeshua, if you do like He did and become perfectly obedient, even if it causes your death, you will also be raised like He was. Whoo! I don't know if this has brought us to the end of this teaching. I cannot say. What I can say is that the next time we meet, I want to move on. I'm hoping, I'm thinking that we might, but I don't know, because I'm not God. We might move on to something different. Let me give you some insight. What does God want? What do you think God wants? He demands your obedience. But he doesn't want your piety. He doesn't want your gifts, your sacrifices, and your offerings. He will accept it, but he doesn't want it. What does he want? And to give you a little peek into what he wants, we've talked about it in times past, but hopefully we will get an opportunity to dig into it. Hosea 6 and 6. And if we start in 1, he will say, "Come, let us return to Yehovah, for he has torn us to pieces, he will heal us. He has injured us, and he will bind up our wounds." And as we keep reading, he says, "For I desire mercy." See, there is no instruction governing mercy. That's why when Paul says we have to operate above the law, he's not saying we have to operate outside of the law. What he's saying is when we operate in mercy, there is no legal parameters that withholds mercy. He says, "I desire mercy and not sacrifice." See, sacrifice, there's legal parameters. You have to do this. The sheep has to be no spots. And there's all these parameters. See, he will accept that. But that's not what his desire is. See, our hearts, we're so bent about the idea of being obedient that we make it hard. And Yeshua says, it's a light thing. Listen, if we get the idea, if we understand the concept, listen, it's going to become less and less and less heavy for us. He says, and the knowledge of Yehovah, or the knowledge of Elohim, more than burnt offerings. Get to know him. He wants you to put more emphasis on getting to know him than on trying to satisfy him. Which you can't, because he's God. There's nothing you can do to satisfy him. But there are things that you can do that he's going to be pleased about when you operate in mercy. Matthew 9. Let's go. Matthew. I'm giving you a little thing. We're gonna a little thing that we're looking into. Matthew 9, and let's go in verse 13. He says, "But you go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice, For I came to call, not to call. Listen. I want you to go and learn what that means. We just read it in Hosea. But I want you, he's telling the Pharisees and them that he wants them to go and learn what that means. The Pharisees, who were the epitome of the law and the Torah and instructions, they didn't know what it meant. So he's telling them, go learn what it means. Go learn what Hosea said, meant when he said, I desire mercy and not sacrifice. Listen. Because, or for, I did not come to call the righteous to repentance, but the sinners. So, he didn't come to call the righteous to repentance. Well, wait a second. Do you understand what he's saying? The righteous are those who are flowing in obedience, who are being obedient, who are willing and obedient. That's who the righteous are. I didn't come to call those who are already doing the instructions, who are already trying to obey the instructions. I didn't come call them to repentance. I came to call the disobedient ones to repentance. The disobedient ones are the sinners. All right, let's close there. I'm going to close there. Ooh, that was so good. That was so good. You all know. Listen. Let's go to Numbers chapter 6 in closing. That's what we're going to be talking about. Hopefully next week. Numbers 6 and 22 in closing. This is the Aaronic blessing. This is a blessing. When Aaron and his sons, when the high priest speak these words over the children of Israel, God says, this is a blessing. Well, how you know? Let's read. Numbers 6 and 22 on through 27 reads as follows. And Yehovah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to Aaron and to his sons, saying, this is how you shall bless the children of Israel. You shall say to them, or you shall tell them, Yehovah bless you and keep you. Yehovah make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yehovah lift up his countenance towards you and give you peace. So they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them. Think about that. In the meantime, Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov, adios, buen nuit, buenas tardes, buenas noches, buenos días, peace. See you soon.